performance and all new styling. The 1994 Accord DX sedan. Basically, Honda changed everything, but the price.
The other night, I needed my prescription filled. There were plenty of stores open, but their pharmacies were all closed. So I headed for People's Drug. Lights were on, door was open. I walked in. There she was, large as life. An actual pharmacist behind the counter. I said, "You're open." She said, "Of course. If the lights are on, I'll be right here." She even told me they had 12 24-hour stores in the Washington area. Then she smiled and said, "You should come around more often."
People's Drug.
And now for some thin, different.
New Domino's Thin Crust Pizza.
It's really something.
We're talking thin crust pizza, a crispy, crunchy crust pizza. And with all your favorite toppings, it's a whole nother taste in a whole nother way. In other words, all right, put that snap back in your life. Now, with any thin crust pizza, you'll get an order of Domino's Twisty Bread free. New thin crust pizza with a twist.
Something for laughing when you call Domino's.
It's been happening.
It's the grand opening of Washington's newest Pontiac store, Fairfax Pontiac. At Fairfax Pontiac, you'll find a super selection of Pontiacs and GMC trucks, and at Washington's best prices, too. Check out this new 93 Bonneville SE, loaded with full power, including air conditioning. Buy it today for only $16,499. Come to Washington's newest Pontiac store, Fairfax Pontiac, where we sell excitement at a fair price.
On the next American Journal, foreign visitors are being killed in America. Nancy Glass is in Miami with new information about violence against tourists. Meg Grant takes you where the latest victim lost his life. And American Journal brings you what's happening now from around the world. Are tourists afraid to visit America? Reporter Les Trent is in London to find out. The story, where it's happening, while it's happening, on the next American Journal.
Thursday at noon on Channel 7.
In Seneca, Maryland, some school kids are learning firsthand what it was like when their grandparents or great-grandparents went to school.
That's right. That's because a one-room schoolhouse built in the 1800s is still operating. News 7's Ed Turney journeyed to Seneca for a front-row seat.
For some fifth-grade students of St. Catherine Labouré in Wheaton, it was another day and another time, even though it was today.
Ladies and gentlemen, smallest to tallest in the front. Gentlemen on this side, ladies on this side. You all have new names and identities, right? Yeah. When you walk through the door, you have to become that person. The year is going to be 1888, more than 100 years ago. We don't say things like, yeah, okay, uh-huh. We say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am.
Welcome to the Seneca Schoolhouse Museum, a one-room schoolhouse built in 1866. A non-profit historic preservation organization administers the museum, and Pat Griffith is just the perfect school marm.
Yes. 114, page 114. The whole idea is to give them an idea of what it was like 100 years ago, of a whole different world, a different attitude towards life and learning and everything else. Yes, ma'am.
The students' regular teacher, Kathy Kilty, is the helper today, as the kids are put through their paces with slate for paper and a funny kind of chalk for a pencil. And I can tell you, they'll be busy.
You may quietly begin your work with your days of the week 5 times each.
Would you like to have lived back 100 years ago?
No.
You like it the way it is?
Yes.
How do you like those chalkboards?
They're cool. Because I like them. It looks like chalk, but it isn't.
You're separated from the boys?
Yes.
You like that?
Yes.
Oh, you do? What don't you like about it?
There's no TV.
No TV, no electricity, and obviously no indoor plumbing. You know, I think the kids learned a lot today, don't you? Ed Turney, News 7.
Well,
They learned that they like in 1993.
yeah, they learned a lot of no's.
Yeah, that's true.
No plumbing, no electricity, obviously no Apple Macintosh.
No Nintendo.
It was cool, okay,
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Well, we're going to have a great weekend. We have to get through some rain tomorrow, and after the rain goes away tomorrow, we'll end up seeing the skies clear out some, and by Saturday it will be sunny. Sunday, sunny day as well, nice warm temperatures. We just have to get there from here. A couple hours of summer left. Make the best.
Okay, we will.
See you later. That's it for News 7 at 6. We thank you for being with us.
Stay tuned now for World News Tonight, and we'll see you again at 11. Good night.
Good night, folks.
News 7, recognized as Washington's best overall news operation by the Associated Press and the Radio and Television News Directors Association.
Let's talk fun. Let's talk lots of Jeep Wranglers. Let's talk loaded. Let's talk price. Let's talk financing. Enough talk. Go take a test drive. Be sure you get your Jeep Wrangler before someone beats you to it.
For every dollar we spend on education in Virginia, 47 cents never makes it to the classroom. As the daughter of school teachers, I know that's wrong. As governor, I'll do something about it.
Mary Sue Terry will cut administrative costs, redirecting money to the classroom, and give parents and teachers control of their schools. Back to basics, getting guns out and quality back in. Terry, governor, someone we can trust.
The lease, the monthly payment, the term, the deposit, the drive-out cost, and, of course, the legalese. Why it's called legalese, we have no idea. There's nothing easy about reading this. It is, however, very easy to lease the GS. The place to do it? Your Washington area Lexus dealer.
Loony laws and laughable lawsuits. Next, Joan Rivers.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, reporting tonight from Washington.
Good evening. We are here tonight to cover President Clinton's address to a joint session of the Congress. The President will tell Congress tonight that he wants the entire system of health care in America overhauled. It's an important day in the history of American social development. But for this news broadcast, at least, it has to be shared with the worst train wreck in the history of the passenger railroad Amtrak. Before dawn this morning, the train plunged into an Alabama swamp. At least 40 people are dead, more than a dozen others are missing and presumed to be dead. ABC's Al Dale reports.
Many of the passengers were asleep when the train plunged off the bridge. It was just after 3 a.m. Passenger cars fell into more than 20 feet of water, and fire broke out in the diesel engines.
From the air, you can tell something of the horror of this train passenger's nightmare, a crash not only in the dead of night, but into the murky waters of the bayou.
Rescuers laid the first of the bodies onto the riverbank until they could be taken away. Then they and the other bodies that were recovered were brought by Coast Guard boat to a loading dock, which served as a makeshift morgue. Medical technicians examined and identified the bodies as best they could, then placed them into ambulances which took them to the morgue downtown. Meanwhile, the injured were taken to a nearby site on shore for medical care and what comfort could be provided. Survivors said they woke up when they felt the train lurch sharply to one side. Simon Grands, a visitor from England, was in the rear car.
The train was like a roller coaster slowing down very quickly, and it came to like a complete standstill, like a car hitting a wall. And
Sam Dean and his wife were on a retirement tour.
When the blaze started coming up, I can see fairly well that the cars was already down in the water. I can see that. And that just made me realize that everybody couldn't get out because somebody wasn't going to be able to swim.
Survivors also said the fire, which continued to smolder all day, hampered their attempts to save victims left in the submerged cars. Al Dale, ABC News, Mobile, Alabama.
Now come the questions. What went wrong and how could it have happened? ABC's Bettina Gregory on the investigation.
No one knows yet whether the rail broke, the trestle bridge failed, or why the derailment occurred. Amtrak says the train, presumed to be going 70 miles an hour, the legal speed limit, plunged off the trestle bridge into the bayou. 3 locomotives went first, followed by a baggage car, a crew sleeping car, then 2 passenger coaches where most of the fatalities occurred. Eyewitnesses reported fire in at least 1 locomotive and a passenger car upon impact. Another passenger car teetered over what was left of the bridge.
There really couldn't have been a worse combination of events. We have a derailment, immersion in water, fire. This is without doubt the worst tragedy to that Amtrak has suffered in its 23-year history.
The lead locomotive with 2 engineers and a trainee apparently aboard landed nose first in the mud. Investigators will try to salvage the train's event recorder, similar to a plane's flight recorder. If they do, investigators here in Washington will check the train's speed and look for mechanical problems. They'll also analyze the structural soundness of the bridge, which was built in 1909. Amtrak says the bridge and the track must be inspected twice a week. Both are owned by CSX, a freight railroad. No problems had been reported. Investigators are checking several possibilities, whether the track broke, the old bridge failed, or whether a barge may have hit the bridge, causing it to weaken. Bettina Gregory, ABC News, Washington.
In a moment, we'll go on to health care. Mr. Clinton prepares for the most important speech of his presidency. We'll check again with the people of Nashville, Tennessee, what they hope they will hear tonight. And overseas, the confrontation in Russia, where 2 men would be president.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Just for Men.
I really didn't want my husband to color his gray hair.
But then I discovered this, the hair coloring called Just for Men.
And now he looks better than ever.
Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, rinse. Just for Men blends away the gray for a totally natural look. No wonder 8 out of 10 women prefer the Just for Men look to the gray look.
It's like you took off 10 years.
And in just 5 minutes.
Just for Men. She'll love the way you look.
This is hydroplaning in less than an inch of water, and they're being pulled by Goodyear all-season AquaTread radials. AquaTread's deep groove design channels water away as you drive for outstanding traction. Hydroplaning, AquaTreading. Think about it.
Tonight's forecast, freezer burn. You need Ziploc brand freezer bags. Only Ziploc has the gripper zipper. Tough, tiny teeth you can feel gripping. Locks freshness in, freezer burn out. I'm freezing my rump roast. Ziploc has the lock on freshness.
Now to the reason we've come to Capitol Hill tonight, President Clinton's appearance not long from now before a joint session of the Congress to set forth his case for the most sweeping change in social policy since the 1930s and the New Deal. The nation, said the president, must seize this moment in history to deal with health care. At the White House this evening, ABC's Britt Hughes.
The president walked over to the Oval Office this morning with much work still to do on the major speech of his administration, but with its basic elements in place. The theme will be health security for all, and Mr. Clinton planned to highlight that by displaying a version of the health insurance card his program would provide every American. Aides said the speech, expected to last as much as an hour even after his further editing today, would have a key political objective.
I think in political terms what you want to do is reassure the American people that they're going to have a health care system that protects their right to health care, but that isn't radical in any way, that's not going to tear the system down. It's going to build on the good qualities of the American system that we have right now.
But Republicans seem certain to argue tonight that the Clinton plan is radical. Senator Mack of Florida, who will be part of the GOP response, said as much today.
There's going to be a creation of agencies, boards, and bureaucracies that makes me think of the Great Society days. The president's plan is an explosion of government, and basically the way that translates to me is that it will give me less choice.
The president, though, has been careful to include both parties in his health care deliberations, as he did again today, and many Republicans say they're ready to overhaul the system. Indeed, for the first time in years, Republican Senate Leader Dole stood beside Democratic Leader Mitchell at the White House, pledging cooperation.
We're looking forward to the president's address tonight, and then we'll be willing to go to work, and I would hope in the next 6, 8, 10 months we'll have a bill.
There will be fierce debate over what that bill should contain, but the president seems to have moved Congress past the question of whether to reform health care and onto the question of how to do it. That's a big step. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
This week we've been analyzing the president's plan, much of it public already, through the lives of people who live in Nashville, Tennessee. How might it affect a single mother or a family with no insurance at all? But tonight, instead of a family or an individual, we're going to look at an industry. There are more than 1,000 insurance companies writing health care policies in the United States. And there may be far fewer if Mr. Clinton's plan becomes law. In Nashville, ABC's George Strait.
Jim Walker is one of Nashville's most successful insurance brokers. When he calls on clients these days,
he's increasingly concerned about what the Clinton plan might do to his business.
Probably first fear is, hey, what will I do for a living?
40% of Walker's business is selling health insurance. He worries that many of the insurance companies he represents may stop offering health policies. Provident Life is one of those companies. For now, it's canceling plans to expand nationwide.
We'll focus much more sharply in the future on southeastern business.
Provident, like most insurance companies, has enjoyed years of big profits with little regulation. Now they fear losses as the president presses 3 major changes on the industry: price controls on premiums, more benefits, and a mandate to insure everyone. Now there are no limits on insurance premiums. Tonight, Mr. Clinton will propose that premium increases must be held to the rate of inflation. Now the benefits Provident offers vary widely by age, gender, and price, and it can refuse to cover people who have been sick. Under the Clinton plan, every American would be entitled to the same benefits. Provident says the Clinton plan could cause it to lay off some of its 6,000 workers, but for now, it will not stop providing health insurance.
It's certainly our intention to be in this market for the long haul. I think we can compete. I think we can succeed.
Provident and the nation's other large insurance companies are likely to survive, but hundreds of small to mid-size health insurers are in jeopardy.
We will see companies leave the marketplace, just fold up, decide that the risk is too high, that they can't live under these new rules, and that they're going away. And that's not altogether bad.
This was covered under our old plan.
While the insurance industry acknowledges the need to reform, their lobby has launched a vigorous campaign attacking most of the new regulations in the Clinton plan, except one, the mandate that everyone must be insured. For that will help salesmen bring in millions of new customers. George Strait, ABC News, Nashville.
Well, the customers, and with universal coverage, that means all of us, would seem to be ready for change. We've conducted a poll, and 59% of the people we asked said that from what they know in advance, Mr. Clinton's plan seems to be fair. 52% say it is better than the present system, though 57% think they will end up paying more for their coverage. The idea of a universal health care system goes back all the way to President Harry Truman. Now that the country may be on the verge of actually having such a system, what do they think of it in Mr. Truman's hometown? ABC's Jim Wheaton has been there.
With a name as patriotic as the 4th of July, no wonder independence produced a president. Oh, give 'em hell Harry, who put his hometown on the map and occasionally in the news, as in 1965 when President Johnson came here to sign the Medicare bill. Truman was impressed.
This is an important hour for the nation.
It was, in fact, the last great sea change in the country's health care system until now.
Just breathe normally now.
Which is why people like cardiologist Ed Laughlin and his patient William O'Shaughnessy are eager to hear more of what this new president is proposing tonight.
One thing he's talking about is benefits for prescription drugs. And I like that because I don't have anything to pay that.
I think the biggest thing is the question of who's going to pay for those that don't already have insurance right now.
People like Ed Gerlach with no insurance and very little hope.
If he comes up with something that works immediately, that's fine. But I don't believe it's going to be that easy or that quick.
In fact, many people are skeptical here, and a lot are downright scared.
I am careful to see what does come from it.
Small businessman John Rotolo, frightened by added costs.
So I hope he looks out for the person like myself.
And for people like Marilyn Miner, too, who runs a downtown sandwich shop. Her customers, Randy Eaton and Todd Martin, are suspicious.
I love my country, but I haven't seen anything that the government's been involved in that they've handled that's been an improvement.
They can't manage the government's budget as a whole. I'm very distrustful.
Independence may be a little down at the heels here and there, and the days when it was more than a whistle stop are long past. But still, not every little town has a presidential library just up the street.
And you can't turn just any corner in America and walk into an exact reproduction of the Oval Office, fairly reeking with the history that Harry Truman made. But there are moments when none of that makes any difference, when the people who live here are asking the same questions people are asking everywhere. Is this president making history tonight or a mistake? And in either case, how will it change my life? Jim Wheaton, ABC News, Independence, Missouri.
Thank you, Jim. At the end of the broadcast tonight, we'll have more on health care. There are very high expectations in Nashville. And in a moment, Russia, a high-stakes game of who's in charge here anyway.
As expected, the shape is new and beautiful. As expected, it's quieter and has more space. As expected, there are dual airbags and anti-lock brakes. As expected, the automotive world once again revolves around one car. The new Accord EX from Honda. As expected.
They're all angels, but boy, did they make a mess. In my classroom, I have a cabinet full of brawny. Those thirst pockets are what do the trick. Spill after spill, day after day. At times, I lose it. Sometimes I'd like them to absorb the kids.
Only Brawny has thirst pockets. These unique absorbers make Brawny so good at soaking up spills.
Brawny gets to the mess before the mess gets to you.
Sorry.
It was delicious.
How about a cappuccino?
You have a cappuccino machine?
This may take a while.
From Maxwell House. Maxwell House Cappuccino. The magic without the machine.
This is great. John, show me how the machine works.
In Russia, the power struggle between Boris Yeltsin and his political opponents has clearly not been resolved overnight. Yesterday, Mr. Yeltsin disbanded Parliament and called for new elections. Today, there are not many visible signs of political turmoil, but the fact remains there are now two men who claim to be the legitimate president of Russia. ABC's David Ensor is in Moscow.
Day two of Yeltsin's gamble seemed choreographed to show which of Russia's dueling presidents is really in charge. Boris Yeltsin hit the streets with his defense minister and police chief in tow. There will be no use of force, Yeltsin said, no bloodshed. The defense minister assured reporters that the army, all of it, is loyal to Yeltsin. And Yeltsin won similar assurances today from the prime minister and from the central bank, which controls the money supply. Meanwhile, Yeltsin's men tried the weapon of humor against the other president, Yeltsin's vice president turned rival, Alexander Rutskoi.
This is, of course, a free country, and anyone is free to say anything, even to claim himself Napoleon, not to speak of president.
President Yeltsin appeared the clear winner on this day, key ministries lining up behind him, and calm on the streets of major Russian cities. But his opponents are not going to give up quietly. About 5,000 rallied outside the White House today, carrying communist flags and denouncing Yeltsin for abandoning the Constitution. In addition to an opposition president, there is now an opposition defense minister who appealed to anyone in the military to join the fight against Yeltsin.
Rutskoi does not need the support of the whole army. Maybe the support of one division or one military academy, which can be enough to strengthen his position enormously.
Both sides have disavowed the use of force, but Yeltsin has deployed security troops outside some government buildings, and he has made this threat. If the banned parliament tries to prevent him from holding elections in December, the deputies will face criminal charges. At the Russian White House, they are already trying to prevent those elections and to organize an emergency meeting of the full parliament to try to rally the nation against Yeltsin. To stop that meeting, he would presumably have to use force. David Ensor, ABC News, Moscow.
Well, virtually all of the Western powers and Japan gave strong backing to Mr. Yeltsin today. President Clinton said that the United States has to be on the side of reform and democracy in Russia, and President Yeltsin said Mr. Clinton represents that. In a moment, John Demjanuk. He is back in the United States as our broadcast continues.
Pain like this could mean you have sensitive teeth. Here's an effective solution.
Brush with Aquafresh Sensitive. It targets the cause of the pain, microscopic holes that let hot and cold shoot straight to the nerve. Aquafresh Sensitive soothes the nerve and helps stop the pain. And with fluoride and that great Aquafresh taste, it can replace your everyday toothpaste, so you may never have sensitive teeth pain again. Aquafresh Sensitive soothes the nerve, helps stop the pain.
The night wraps its naked arms around the earth. Mothers whisper to their children, hush-a-bye. Crickets chirp for quiet in the wood, as if the quiet will do them good. This is the night of a million dreams, as planets spin around our heads. What better place to be in a night like this, safely tucked into our beds? Serta, we make the world's best mattress.
Want the inside story on me, George Brett? I have minor arthritis pain. Right here, see? And hey, I gotta use this shoulder. That's why I want strong relief. So I use Ultra Strength Bengay. It's the only one with 3 pain relievers. And besides, doctors recommend Bengay the most. For arthritis pain like yours and mine, get relief right where it hurts. Ultra Strength Bengay. Nothing stronger.
No, I don't get it. You think it's hard to find the apples in some of these newfangled wholesome cereals? Well, so do I. But somebody got this oatmeal crisp right. See this? Real apple slices, skin and all. Here's your crispy flakes and cinnamon. Then they bake in brown sugar like Aunt Pearl's famous apple cobbler. If you're bobbing for apples, you bob your head over here and try oatmeal crisp with apples. Brown sugar baked, wholesome, darn tasty, too.
16 years after he was accused of being the sadistic Nazi death camp guard Ivan the Terrible, and after spending 7 years in an Israeli prison, John Demjanuk returned to America today. He has another major legal battle ahead of him. Here's ABC's Jim Hickey.
The country that wanted to hang John Demjanuk, in the end, flew him to freedom. An Israeli jetliner brought him back to the U.S. Many Jews are outraged that he is free. Facing anger and death threats, Demjanuk was whisked aboard a private plane in New York. He landed outside Cleveland and went into seclusion.
Anyone that has been stigmatized of being the most notorious monster of World War II for 16 years certainly has to be concerned.
Although the Israeli court overturned his conviction, many Jews are still convinced he was a Nazi death camp guard. Outside Demjanuk's suburban Cleveland home, Jewish demonstrators, dressed in mock Nazi prison camp uniforms, protested his release and return to the U.S.
He did slip through the cracks, so in terms of the issue itself, he certainly deserved to be executed.
Demjanuk's troubles are far from over. A federal court in Ohio still has to decide whether he can remain in the U.S. At issue is whether the Justice Department acted illegally when it stripped Demjanuk of his citizenship and sent him to Israel 7 years ago. Jim Hickey, ABC News, Cleveland.
Speaking of World War II, there was a very moving moment here on Capitol Hill today at a Senate Armed Services Committee confirmation hearing for General John Shalikashvili. He is President Clinton's choice to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. After he was nominated, it was learned that his father had served with a Nazi SS unit in his native Georgia in the Soviet Union. The general says he never knew.
I am deeply saddened that my father had this tragic association. To me, he was a kind and gentle man, and I loved him very much. He was a man who perhaps loved his native Georgia too much. Certainly a man caught up in the awful tragedy of World War II.
A tough moment for a son who will most likely become the senior military officer in the United States. After 10 days in orbit, the Space Shuttle Discovery and its 5 astronauts appeared in the pre-dawn sky this morning to make the first nighttime shuttle landing at Cape Canaveral since the space program began. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials gained more than 9 points to close at 35.47, and the trading was heavy. We'll have a final report on healthcare in a moment as our broadcast continues.
You mean if I call my son in college the most, Sprint pays half?
Now there's a new reason to switch to the most.
What if I told you he goes to college in Japan?
No problem. Call anyone, anywhere, anytime, and Sprint will split the bill on the person you call most.
I don't suppose there's anything you could do about his tuition bill.
Sorry, we have to draw the line somewhere.
Call now and save 50% with Sprint's calling plan, the most.
As the hands of time run through your hair, the clock ticks. As the winds of change blow through it, the clock ticks. Now you can battle the harsh effects of the environment with the power of natural botanicals in Biolash Hydrating Shampoo. So the winds of change are calmed, so the hands of time lose their grip. Until the world is a safer place for your hair, there's Biolash.
Biolash Hydrating Shampoo by Matrix, only in fine salons.
I knew something must be wrong. I was getting these sharp pains, and sometimes pressure and bloating. I'm glad I asked my doctor. He said it was gas and recommended Mylanta Gas.
Mylanta Gas. It has the best medicine for gas.
Give me one good reason to try new Serenity bladder control guards. This new blue layer, only Serenity has it. Pulls the wetness in quicker. Odor protection. Drier, fresher, that just feels cleaner.
New Dry Layer Plus from Serenity.
I'm Ted Koppel. Coming up on Nightline, one day in the life of Tampa's General Hospital, and you'll have a whole new outlook on the president's health care program. Tonight.
Finally from us this evening, the expectations in Nashville. After the president speaks tonight, we're going back to Tennessee to see what influence his speech here has had on the people we have been listening to down there. They have pretty high expectations. It is, of course, people that make a city, not the buildings, though in this one city block in downtown Nashville, we did find people's fears and expectations pretty much the same as elsewhere. We did a thorough survey and found that they reflect what the president says is wrong with the healthcare system. Corporate America is here sharing the block with small business. Almost 1,000 people make a living inside these four corners. We found that 13% of them have no assurance that they will financially survive a serious illness in the family. And that's the national average.
I understand it's very complicated. That's the only thing I know.
Most people we talk to find the president's math and some of his methodology confusing. Even other presidents are having trouble wading through the details. Do you have any sense as to how it might affect the bank?
At this point, no. I think until the plan is laid out in its detail, none of us will know.
In time, Mr. Cook will learn that he will likely pay 80% of his employees' health insurance premiums, more than he's paying now. The boss next door is going to have to cover his employees, too. There are 5 of them shining shoes here. Robert Percy doesn't pay anything for them now, not even for himself.
If I trip and fall, I just trip and fall. I'm going to take my chances for the time being until something better come along.
It is the small business folk we find most confused. Kathy Bloodworth, the owner of the peanut shop, home of the original Planters peanuts.
It's hard enough to make ends meet as it is, and I'd hate to think that I have to pay for someone else's insurance when I'm having trouble paying for my own, you know.
Quite a lot of people in this block head to Jeff Brandon's Sports Page restaurant for lunch. They like his menu and his prices. Jeff has never paid any health care for his 8 employees. President Clinton says that government will help, but Jeff's not very confident that government help would arrive in time.
It will hurt us to the point that if they don't do something quick enough, we'll be out of business.
And we ran into Richard Schweid. He's a freelance writer with a little office upstairs. If other countries can offer universal care, he said, why can't America?
I think the people are going to force the government to do something. There's no question to my mind.
He can certainly count on the support of Frank Piddleco, who helps keep the block clean.